Roseanne Barr's long-awaited comeback from cancellation.
Long-awaited is a little bit hyperbolic.
This is like high school nostalgia for me. Like, Roseanne Barr, if you didn't know, in 2018, fired off a tweet that I'm sure she came to regret tweeting that compared one of Obama's advisors to, I believe she said, a mix of the Muslim Brotherhood with the Planet of the Apes.
It was the Ambien, ladies and gentlemen. It was the Ambien. And as somebody who was prescribed to Ambien for years, I can attest that it will make you say
she was using Twitter too much.
Things.
She was on Ambien, whatever. And this had disastrous consequences for her career at the time. She had been in this reboot of the original Roseanne for a couple years by then, right? And it was doing incredibly well. And ABC just didn't accept her apology or her explanation, being that she said she thought that advisor was white and that advisor was black. So
we were in the grips of
therefore it's wrong.
We were in the grips of TDS at that time in 2018, and
we were deep in that.
We were deep in the
insanity.
TDS.
It bothers me that they don't have a screen grab of her tweet. I hate when
they aren't putting it anywhere.
I hate when outlets do this. They'll be like, they do it to everyone. This offensive tweet that they said, but we won't show you because
we'll just paraphrase it in the most unflattering way possible.
That's the J.K. Rowling tweets to a T.
How can I know this tweet was that bad unless I see it myself?
That's what they do with J.K. Rowling. They say her extremely transphobic tweets.
And Kanye, all kinds of people.
Yeah. So Roseanne fell from grace because of this situation. They did not accept her explanation for why she tweeted it. And then they continued the rebooted show without her by killing off her character and renaming it The Connors. And I didn't know this, but Brett, you said it's still on the air.
I don't know if it's still on the air, but it was on the air for way longer than I expected it to.
It's really, that's a psychotic conclusion to come to, that we should just kill off her character in the canon of the show that she essentially created.
I might be misremembering, but I think her co-stars were like, we don't agree with this decision. Obviously, they don't want to lose their jobs.
I mean, they kept going.
Yeah, but
so
she's still
on the air.
She still feels, The Connors is still on the air. She still feels like she was wronged by her co-stars because they were complicit in what happened. And that's true. Like, they earned money off of the backs of the show that she made it what it was.
Let's face it.
She made it the #1 show that it was.
I'm not surprised that they would want to keep going. It's a rebooted show that they're all potentially going to collect a paycheck again from.
Right.
Like, that's not that crazy.
Like John, I honestly,
it's kind of a lot to ask to be like, walk out on a career, stop earning money.
Exactly. Like, it's like at the end of the day, you're still. They just kind of like what virtue signaling is, right? It's like at the end of the day, you're going to put your own and your family's interests before the interests of the lady you work with. Unfortunately, like, and if I'm being honest, when I think of Roseanne, I think of John Goodman as much as I think of Roseanne.
Yeah,
I do.
Sure. I didn't really watch the show a lot growing up, but I've seen it, and like again, I just remember I thought the man had been like, this is a bad move, but maybe they sold her out. Maybe they should have said more. I'm not surprised that they weren't going to be.
It wouldn't have mattered.
But we'll leave the job. Like, have they been working in anything else? They're making money for the.
To be fair, that's what like Dave Bautista was like that when James Gunn got fired from the Guardians of the Galaxy. He's like, I'm walking out and I'm gonna break my contract. And this is like, they were like the Guardians of the Galaxy cast were exactly like that when James Gunn got fired initially from Guardians 3 before they secretly brought him back.
Everyone's out for themselves.
Wouldn't it have been cooler if everyone in there was like, no, we don't want to work with this network, and then the network sold it to like Daily Wire, and then
See, that's gonna happen. Like, I wonder about those actors, like those movies that the Daily Wire licensed before they started their own studios. Do you think they have to answer questions now? Where they're like, you were in this alt-right Ben Shapiro made the so-and-so movie from the Daily Wire. They're like, look, I just took an acting job.
Yeah.
Like, to the people that don't care.
Honestly, this is a special case in 2018 where I think if Roseanne had done this today, we're so fatigued with cancel culture that ABC would probably just have a PR team give her a debriefing on what to do on social media.
How to stop using Ambien.
How to respond. Stop using Ambien at this time of day.
And then make her go on a struggle session with 40 members of the presidential candidate.
Go on The View and go on an apology tour, and then they just bring her back.
She could film a special where she talks to people who have said crazy things on Ambien, and that would be hilarious.
Yeah,
I could
like
have been
a
on
PSA.
that one.
Yeah, you could have been on. I mean, I really feel like this is the gold that we're missing. Whatever, is Fox producing her show? She has like a comedy special now, Fox Nation.
Yeah.
They are the ones who now should send her like as if she is an Oprah, but she's speaking to people who have to then read their like crazy tweets.
It's our ghettoized. It's our ghettoized culture now. You've been canceled now. Off to Fox and the Daily Wire with you.
But
her new special is called cancel this with an exclamation
It's so
mark
boomer.
at the end.
It's so boomer.
And
That's part of her charm, though.
Cancel this.
it's charming to some, cringy to others.
But if she tried to be anything but boomer, we'd be like,
she ran for
Right.
president in 2012.
oh, sure.
well, I
Green
didn't know
Party.
if this part was sarcastic, but she said she ran for the presidency as a socialist and still identifies as such today. And I was like, that doesn't seem right.
I bet she does. I mean,
the self-created Green Tea Party.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think that a lot of people don't know what socialist means, and so they can identify as a socialist. You know what I mean? I'm not surprised by that.
She's a bit of a wild card.
I think
clearly.
also what she's saying is that they painted her in one light, even though that's not representation of her. When we saw this happen with David DePape,
Yeah.
the guy who attacked Pelosi, they were like, he was a far-right extremist, except he's a registered member of the Green Party,
What
and all
is
of his
the-
kids are like, no, he's definitely a liberal.
It says that she was repeatedly she criticized Jill Stein after losing the Green Party nomination in 2012, and she ran under the Peace and Freedom Party ticket. What the hell is the Peace and Freedom Party ticket? Let's go.
it's a
tons of
wild backstory.
I'm here for
No,
it.
there's a ton of minor political parties in the U.S. We just
Sign
don't
me
talk
up for
about them.
the Peace and Freedom Party.
Sad for Roseanne. This is not good, but none of this means anything to me unless I can see her tweet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If it's really that bad, you should be able to publish it so I can read and be like, how could she say that? It's that bad.
right.
But it wasn't. It was just
Yeah.
like it was just taken.
But
out of
now it's
context.
that they have manufactured a scandal. Like if I read the tweet now and I was like, nah, it's not the spiciest thing that's on the internet. You know
It's
what I mean?
definitely not.
Because
Even
that's the
from
thing.
like the paraphrasing of it, it seems tame enough to me.
By
but-
disappearing the tweet, though, we just have to trust from mainstream media that she said something bad and that there was a scandal.
And
I
there's-
want to evaluate the evidence myself.
And this is the further proof now that cancel culture has become a product. It's become a product that is now being sold to boomers.
Yeah.
It feels that way to me between Louis C.K.
When Piers Morgan came out with this show Uncensored,
Yeah.
while still being very cemented in the establishment media, yeah, I thought this is kind of a disingenuous angle. But at least for Roseanne's case, she was legitimately wronged, and it was a unique case where she was just like thrown to the wolves.
Yeah.
Like particularly egregiously now that I'm looking back at it. And if she feels like she wants to have the last word or the last laugh, then, you know, more power to her for that. I just don't know if it's going to be aligning with my sense of humor as someone in a different generation. But she said that it's going to be her most offensive stand-up that she's ever done. And I'm like,
Ooh.
I don't know. How offensive are we
you ever
talking?
notice-
It does. Do people now think being offensive is the same as being funny? Like sometimes I feel like these comedians are like,
yeah.
I'm so offensive, and so therefore I'm edgy and cool and watch me. Like you can say offensive stuff, and it's not very interesting or entertaining. You know?
Yeah.
Most of the offensive stuff is not said at a time when they're trying to be offensive. It happens by accident because people are offended by everything.
Like Amy
Take
Schumer is an
Ambien.
offensive comedian. She says offensive jokes. And
She's
they're still
also
not
terrible.
funny.
She's a
yeah.
terrible comedian.
They're not good jokes.
Being offensive doesn't make you funny. I think that's what people
Yeah.
are missing.
I think that, you know, it's probably more wholesome than she's letting on. And she still has retained a lot of her audience from before because she's just such a cultural mainstay. And she says herself that, like, when she started doing stand-up again, the audience that appreciated her most was completely, like, diverse, more than the media would ever have you believe. And I even saw this quote from Norm Macdonald, which R.I.P., one of the
Yeah.
greatest comedians. He said about Roseanne, on the original show, she had network sitcom's first gay couple. She would always want more minorities on the show, on the writing staff. When she did this reboot, it was all her idea to get all these different orientations and religions and so forth represented. She is certainly not a racist. That's crazy. So now, like, on Pop Culture Crisis, when we see showrunners with the same agenda, we're immediately suspicious of it because it means that you truly are more fixated on race than any of the people you accuse of being hateful and racist.
Turns out Roseanne Barr is
from
just as
Roseanne
bad.
Barr, like, is she just as bad, or is she just, you know, a naive baby boomer who was raised on the values of actual inclusion and tolerance, is now being faced with the ugly side of it, and she was thrown away by her own kind?
It's a monster of their own creation.
Yeah.
It really is.
Like it backfired on her bad.
When I watch old movies and I laugh at how naturally diverse, like what they've done now, if you actually really look at it, it's not that they're necessarily more or less diverse. They are. But one of the things that they've done, so if you've got a cast of 4 people, right, you would know that back in the day, the lead guy had to be white. That would have been I guarantee the studio, whether it's racism or not, or whether it's marketing 101, whether they still bought into at that time, we need to sell this product to people who look this way because they're the majority of the market. So the main guy would be white, the main girl would be white, the rest of the characters would be diverse, right? Now they've just swapped it so that the diverse characters are the leads and the white people are the side characters in most of these shows. Mm-hmm. Like the demographic makeup, it is always funny when there is the college brochure candid, like there's the college brochure like shot of any show where it's like it shows all the cast members and it's like,
yeah.
I don't actually believe it. It's statistically probable that all of these people would have ended up in the same place. That doesn't seem realistic to me. It's the bullshit meter I'm always talking about. Like I don't buy it because it feels like some lady named Jan who works in the HR department talked to Kelly who worked in the casting department and they wrote out a list of who had to be hired to do this. Whereas back in the day, whether you are talking about Roseanne or even like look at Top Gun Maverick, I guarantee you that Tom Cruise had a large amount of say in the casting, and that was a diverse cast, right? So it could be done better by a good leading producer and actor whose name is on the show than it can by Jan and Kelly in the casting and HR departments who are strictly doing it, whether it's for ESG as mandated by their producers or just because they just got out of their most recent DIE training seminar.
I don't think that what Norm Macdonald was referring to, I don't think Roseanne did it in that same cynical way. Like someone in the chat said, I think Roseanne was just trying to do the best she could and she seems like a genuine person. I totally agree, and that's why I take more of a sympathetic stance to her, even if I don't like understand some of her viewpoints or click with her sense of humor. I agree with her when she said, like, these people wanted me to commit suicide. Like, I genuinely think that
they're full of hatred.
The perpetrators of actual cancel culture, they do want you to disappear yourself.
Yep.
And when they killed her character off, they were doing it because they wanted her to die too.
Yeah.
Like, they're murderous, bloodthirsty people.
At the very least, they want you homeless in a box where you can.
For
where
a
you
tweet
can,
that they won't show us. I know I'm sounding like a broken record here, but like,
well, I'm sure it's on Google
crazy?
Images.
Yeah, but why wouldn't the Hollywood Reporter include that, right? If it's so
because they're missing
bad, it's because it's fake, right? It's because all of this was a manufactured scandal from the beginning just to crucify someone. And I think that's crazy. And I think that feeds the worst part of society that needs there to be negativity and something to attack someone else for. I mean, people live for this, and I think this was one of these examples in 2018, and she got canceled and then things subsided a little bit. Like, she was a hallmark because it, in some ways, you see cancel culture ebb and flow. It's not always as strong or as vicious. There are moments where there are like, oh, I think we've gone slightly too far, now we've got to a little bit, not overcorrect, but simmer down for a minute, and then it comes back. And she happens to be one of these peaks in the ebbing flow of
that's got to be scary for like somebody in Hollywood too, to just not know if today's the day you're the one who gets just castrated and sent out to pasture.
And if culture is so vitriolic, that is it going to be like you can offer an apology like I took Ambien, or you have to die to repent for your sins?
In most of these, like I said, when we were talking about Slash.
Well, yeah, I did want to explain that seemingly tenuous connection. I saw this story where Slash from Guns N' Roses was recently interviewed, and he was just like reflecting on a lot of his career. And he wrote a self-titled memoir back in 2007. The interviewer asked him, like, how did he decide what to include in there? And has he thought more about what it would be like for Guns N' Roses to have come up in this day and age? And he said, I haven't actually thought about it in that context. I mean, I really, to be honest, haven't thought about all that scandalous stuff that much recently. But now that you mention it, most of everything that Guns N' Roses did would have gotten us canceled in this day and age. We would not have fared well in this environment for sure, on so many different levels. But a lot of the things from back then would not be what you consider acceptable in this moment in time. I'm just glad that we didn't have the internet back then. Yeah. It would have been a different world altogether. But anyway, I don't dwell on all that stuff. It just is what it is. He's clearly dodging the question because he doesn't want to get investigated.
The,
but you can guess what Guns N' Roses was up to in the late 80s.
They weren't checking the IDs of the women who got on those buses.
Sure, and there's so much more. Like, can you imagine what they said in private?
Yeah.
That would not be acceptable today. And that's just what's behind closed doors.
Yeah.
But then think about the content of their music. Like, this interviewer brought up a song of theirs that's known for being very controversial, 1 in a Million. And Axl Rose wrote this about moving to LA and encountering a lot of seedy people. He said, you know, like, this has references to someone attempting to assault him who was gay, and immigrant workers who tried to like pull scams on him. Said like things about African Americans that tried to like sell fake goods on bus lines and like crazy stuff like that. And it was an angry sounding song, right? Yeah. And it says the N-word in it. It says the bundle of sticks word in it. It says all sorts of things. And that would just simply not have flown today. Like, that is not something you could put out today. Today, you have to put out a song like Watermelon Sugar and dress up like a little girl and, you know, cough, cough, Harry Styles, then you will be considered a real rock star.
You can make that stuff, but I guess was the industry as corporate as it is now? Like, I'm sure like whatever record label he was a part of in the 80s has consolidated down even further to like less and less companies.
And by the way, like, Slash is half black. He performed this song, I'm sure had no objections to what was in the content of this song or the lyrics, or they have other controversial songs as well. And you can tell that they're trying to manufacture some outrage again, and it's just simply not working because he's not from this generation.
All of that generation has to be living terrified of all the things that are eventually going to come out about them when they're like, and I was on a tour bus with them and this happened, and it's like he was just coked out of his mind. They're just coked out of their mind, did a bunch of heroin. They're like, that could have happened. I have no idea. Maybe like you know, like
no one has the Snapchat screenshots.
It was the 80s. It was a different time. Yeah, like exactly. It's very, very scary for them, but it does make you wonder like what the next musician will be, who will just be like, who was it recently? Steven Tyler?
Yeah, Steven Tyler was exposed for allegedly, abusing this girl, forcing her to get an abortion when she was very young. And it's just like, you never know what these celebrities are like in private. Once again, that's just they're walking PSAs as to why you shouldn't idolize them.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.